Now, the Motorola G15 is one of Motorola's newest entry-level smartphones, but it's only offering 4G connectivity, so do its other features and its bright orange colour offer enough to make it a worthy option. Let's take a look. Now, of course, the really budget phones rarely come with premium materials, but that doesn't mean that they have to feel cheap. Now, the Motorola G15 follows Motorola's usual design language, an all-plastic build varying from a matte finish to a vegan leather finish that helps resist fingerprints and smudges. The device is available in a plethora of colour options, including gravity grey, iguana green, sunrise orange, sea blue and glacier blue, which of course helps give users some variety. The back houses the usual design camera system along with the classic Motorola logo in the centre, and you get the usual volume buttons on the right with a power button with integrated fingerprint scanner, USB-C charging port on the bottom with a speaker grille, and at the top you do get a 3.5mm headphone jack, and then the left of the phone is just your SIM tray. And at just 8.2mm thick and weighing just 190 grams, the G15 is relatively comfortable to hold, though it's not the lightest phone in the budget segment and it's also not the smallest. And the ever so slightly curved edge and the textured back, at least on this orange model, give it a really nice grip. But given its size, one-handed use might be a bit tricky for those with smaller hands. And just a quick pause, if you're enjoying this video and you like seeing budget phone unboxings and reviews, sub to the channel would be awesome. Back to the video. And Motorola have included IP54 ingress protection with the G15, so of course don't go dunking it under the water, but if you get caught in the rain or anything like that, you should be absolutely fine, just giving you that little bit of protection against the elements. And for the display, the Motorola G15 comes with a 6.7-inch IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution. This is protected with Corning Gorilla Glass 3, which of course is a very old version of Gorilla Glass, but it should give you pretty basic protection from scratches, but I would still recommend a screen protector. And that is also good for a pixel density of just under 400 pixels per inch, so it is a nice sharp display, and it's a pretty good quality display. Of course, you're not going to get the high contrast from an AMOLED display, but overall the IPS LCD on this G15 is absolutely fine. But one thing to note on this G15 is it comes just with a 60 Hz refresh rate, which is the same as the 60 Hz found on the G14 before it, and oddly enough a downgrade from the 90 Hz found on the G13 before that. So of course, if you're used to higher refresh rate displays, it will feel like a bit of a downgrade going to this G15. Overall for me, the responsiveness of the display has been absolutely fine. Personally, I do notice going from a 90 to a 60 Hz display, and there will be people out there that feel the same. But if you're just a bog standard user and you're not really too bothered about that sort of stuff, 60 Hz on this is absolutely fine. And bezels are about as chunky as you'd expect on a budget phone, relatively uniform on the sides and the top, but you do get a slightly thicker chin. And then you get a punch hole cut out with an 8MP f2.0 selfie camera, which is good for 1080p at 30fps selfie video, but I'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. And as for the software on the Motorola G15, it comes packed with Android 15 out of the box with a February 2025 security patch. And unfortunately, Motorola haven't committed to giving the Motorola G15 any major Android updates, so the likelihood you are going to be stuck on Android 15 through the life cycle of this phone, but you will receive 2 years of security updates. And overall, the software experience on the G15 is very similar to what you'd find on most other Motorola's in this price bracket. You do have a few preloaded apps on the phone, a few preloaded games, which of course you can uninstall if you don't want them on there. But overall, the user experience when it comes to Android 15 on this G15 is about what you'd expect. You get plenty of customization options with themes and wallpapers, etc. So you can really tweak with the phone to make it look how you want it to look. But in terms of actual software updates, you're not going to get huge amounts on this phone at all. So I would personally go for another model if you want regular updates. And as for the battery on the G15, it comes packed with a slightly larger 5200 mAh battery than what you'd find on other budget Motorola's or budget phones in general, really. And it does come with just 18 watts of fast charging. So the battery life is absolutely great on the G15, easily gets you through a full day or a couple of days if you're a light user. That 18-watt charging is about expected at this price, to be honest. It's not going to get you charged up pretty quickly, but for the battery life that you get with this phone, I don't think that's a huge issue. 2 days of light use, absolutely fine with this 5200 mAh cell. So yeah, battery life is absolutely great. And then performance is taken care of by a MediaTek Helio G81 Extreme processor built on a 12nm architecture. So it's not going to be the most powerful processor on the market, nor the most efficient. So thankfully you've got a large battery in this phone, but overall I found performance to be absolutely fine. I've had no hiccups or anything like that. Naturally, you will find a few hiccups here and there if you do a lot of multitasking or intense gaming or something like that. But I think most people that will be picking up this phone aren't going to be doing that sort of thing, at least with the gaming. But yeah, performance is absolutely fine if you just want something that can just do the basics. There's no problems with the G81 Extreme. Why it's called Extreme, I'm not really sure. There's not really much extreme about it, to be honest. But yeah, performance, basic, but absolutely fine. And pairing that performance with 4 gigs of RAM, or you can expand it up to 12 gigs with the RAM expand option. And that is LPDDR4X RAM, so it's not the fastest RAM on the market. And you do get 128 gigabytes of internal storage, which you can expand with a micro SD card up to 1 terabyte. So 128 gigs of storage is about the basic that you would find on most smartphones these days, but you do get that micro SD card support as well. So if you run out of storage, you'll be absolutely fine with a micro SD card. And then lastly, if we just quickly talk about the cameras on the G15. Equipped with a 50 megapixel f1.8 primary camera, and that's backed with just a 5 megapixel f2.4 ultra wide. And then the third sensor on the back is just a ambient light sensor or flicker sensor for helping in just sort of tricky lighting situations. And overall photos coming from the Motorola G15 are about what you'd expect from a budget phone at this price. Most phones at this price come with 50 megapixel sensors, and with that f1.8 aperture, in daylight gets some pretty decent photos, perfectly usable. Of course, naturally, when you go into slightly lower light situations, the detail does drop quite considerably. And there is a night vision mode just if you want to bring out more detail in those photos as well. The 5 megapixel ultra wide, unsurprisingly, being a lower resolution than the 8 megapixels found on others, produces some pretty basic photos. That really narrow f2.4 aperture does hinder its ability to bring in a huge amount of detail. And of course, in lower light situations, that's brought down even more. You do get 1080p video at 30 FPS support on that main camera. And again, that's just budget quality video, nothing to rave about, but it's absolutely usable if you're just taking a few videos of your kids or your pets, etc. And then the front-facing f2.0 8 megapixel selfie camera produces, again, basic selfies that are absolutely fine. Not a huge amount of detail, but they're absolutely fine for just general social media sharing. And then if you want to take part in some video calls as well. And like I said before, that's 1080p at 30 FPS video coming from that selfie camera. So this is just a very quick sample of selfie video coming from the 8 megapixel camera of the G15, topping out at 1080p at 30 FPS. In good conditions, it's not going to perform too badly, especially with this bright daylight. Flipping around, that's where you'll find that it struggles in harsher lighting situations with a lack of HDR on that video. But yeah, overall, not too bad. So that's my look at the Motorola G15. Now you can pick this up on Amazon currently for about 140 quid. Now while in itself it's a solid phone, it does everything relatively well. It does face stiff competition from phones in its own lineup. For example, for a few extra quid, about 30 quid more, you can pick up the Motorola G55, and it improves in a number of ways. It's got 120Hz display, a higher resolution selfie camera, higher resolution ultra wide, and it boosts the charging speed up to 30 watts. And I think those extras are definitely worth the extra money. But if you're not bothered about all those upgrades, the Motorola G15 is absolutely fine. Oh, and it comes with 5G connectivity. So if you can stump up about 30 quid more, I'd certainly at least consider the G55. And it's a little bit smaller as well. So if you like a phone that's just slightly smaller, this is actually a pretty good option. But let me know down in the comments what you think of the Motorola G15. Is it a phone that you would consider buying? Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this. And I'll see you in the next one.